I've come to the realization that my videos are probably really cringe, and I'm going to regret this in a couple of years. But currently I don't care. Yeah. So today I'm reading Artemisfowl by Ian Corfler, chapter 3. This chapter is 31 pages long, and it will take a while to read it, so please bear with me and enjoy. Today I'm going to be playing lo-fi behind the beat, like, in the background. Hopefully I don't get demonetized for it, but it doesn't really matter regardless, so I don't really care. Yeah, just to add a little bit of ambiance. And I have my beer of some sort. I don't know what it's called. Machello? It's written in cursive, so it really looks like it says Machello, which I don't think is accurate. I got my candle going as well. So yeah. Let's just progress. Chapter 3, Holy. Oh wait, before I even begin, please like and subscribe to the video. Well, I don't really expect people to listen to this. If you do happen to listen to it, any sort of appreciation is fantastic. So, thank you. Anyways, let's get into it. Chapter 3, Holy. Holy Short was lying in bed, silently fuming. Nothing unusual about this. Leprechauns in general were not known for their geniality, but Holly was in an exceptionally bad mood, even for a fairy. Technically she was an elf, fairy being a general term. She was a leprechaun too, but that was just a job. Perhaps a description would be more helpful than a lecture on fairy genealogy. Holly Short had nut brown skin, cropped auburn hair, and hazel eyes. Her nose had a hook and her mouth was plump and cherubic, which is appropriate considering Cupid was her great-grandfather. Her mother was a European elf with a fiery temper and a willowy figure. Holly too had a slim frame with long tapered fingers, perfect for wrapping around a buzz baton. Her ears, of course, were pointed. At exactly 3 feet in height, Holly was only a centimetre below the fairy average. But even 1 centimetre can mean an awful lot, and can make an awful lot of difference when you don't have many to spare. So, I've seen a lot of descriptions of Holly Short. The most accurate description of an actual person. Sorry, my dog is walking around. The most accurate description of Holly Short that I've heard was like a Halle Berry from Catwoman, looking like that, but fucking short and have red hair, but with that same style of haircut and same spiciness as the character. So I don't think that's really important, but it might help you visualize a little bit better. Commander Root was the cause of Holly's distress. Root had been on Holly's case since day one. The commander had decided to take offense at the fact that the very first female officer in Recon's history had been assigned to his squad. Recon was a notoriously dangerous posting with a high fatality rate, and Root didn't think that it was any place for a girlie. Well, he was just going to have to get used to the idea, because Holly Short had no intention of quitting for him or anybody else. Though she'd never admit it, another possible cause for Holly's irritability was the ritual. She'd been meaning to perform it for several moons now, but somehow there just never seemed to be time. And if Root found out she was running low on magic, she'd be transferred to traffic for sure. Holly rolled off her futon and stumbled into the shower. That was one advantage of living near the Earth's core. The water was always hot. So no natural light, of course, but that was a small price to pay for privacy. Underground, the last human-free zone. There was nothing like coming home after a long day on the job, switching off your shield and sinking into a into a bubbling slime pool. Bliss. The only thing I can picture with this is when Shrek decides to jump into his swamp and uses it as like a shower, which is so nasty. Oh my god. The fairy suited up, zipping the dull green jumpsuit up to her chin and strapping on her helmet. Leprechaun, that's L-E-P and then recon right after, so like, it's pretty clever. A leprechaun uniforms was stylish these days, not like that top of the morning costume the Force had to wear back in the old days. Buckled shoes and knickerbockers. Honestly, no wonder leprechauns were such ridiculous figures in the human folklore. Still, probably better that way. If the mud people knew that the word leprechaun actually originated from the leprechaun, an elite branch of the lower elements police, they'd probably take steps to stamp them out. Better to stay inconspicuous and let the humans have the stereotypes. With the moon already rising on the surface, there was no time for proper breakfast. Holly grabbed the remains of a nettle smoothie from the cooler and drank it in the tunnels. As usual, there was chaos in the main thoroughfare. Airborne sprites jammed the avenue like stones in a bottle. The gnomes weren't helping either, lumbering along with their big swinging behinds, blocking 2 lanes. Swear toads infested every damp patch, cursing like sailors. That particular breed began as a joke, but had multiplied into an epidemic. Someone lost a wound over that. Holly battled through the crowds to the police station. There was already a riot outside Spud's Emporium. LEP Corporal Newt was trying to sort it out. Good luck to him. Nightmare. At least Holly didn't get the chance to work above ground. I'm sorry, I have to re-say that. At least Holly got the chance to work above ground. I don't know if I should say LEP or if I should just say LEP. Because LEP sounds like it's just missing something. You know. I don't know. I guess I'll just say LEP. The LEP station doors were crammed with protesters. The Goblin Dwarf turf war had flared up again, and every morning hordes of angry parents showed up demanding the release of the innocent offspring. Holly snorted. If there actually was an innocent goblin, Holly Short had yet to meet him. They were clogging up the cells now, howling gang chants and hurling fireballs at each other. Holly shouldered her way into the throng. Coming through, she grunted. Police business. They were on her like flies on a stinkworm. My grandpa is innocent. Police brutality. Officer, could you take my baby his blankie? He can't sleep without it. Holly set her visor to reflect and ignored them all. Once upon a time, a uniform would have earned you some respect. Not anymore. Now you were a target. Excuse me, officer, but I seem to have misplaced my jar of words. Pardon me, young elf, but my cat climbed a stalactite. Or, if you have a minute, Captain, could you show me how to get to the Fountain of Youth? Holly shuddered. Tourists. She had troubles of her own, more than she knew, as she was about to find out. In the station lobby, a kleptomaniac dwarf was busy picking the pockets of everyone else in the booking line, including the officer he was handcuffed to. Holly gave him a swipe in the backside with her baton. The electric charge singed the seat of his other pants. What you doing there, Morch? Morch started, contraband dropping from his sleeves. Officer Short, he whined, his face a mask of regret. I can't help myself. It's in my nature. I know that, Morch, and it's our nature to throw you in a cell for a couple of centuries. She winked at the dwarf's arresting officer. Nice to see you're staying a lot. The elf blushed, kneeling to pick up his wallet and a badge. Holly forged past Fruit's office, hoping she would make it to her cubicle before. Short, get in here! Holly sighed. Oh well, here we go again. Stowing her helmet under her arm, Holly smoothed the creases from her uniform and stepped into Commander Root's office. Root's face was purple with rage. That was more or less his general state of existence, a fact that earned him the nickname Beetroot. There was an office pool running on how long he had before his heart exploded. The smart money was on half a century, on the outside. Commander Root was taping the moon meter on his wrist. "Well," he demanded, "what time do you call this?" Holly could feel her own face colouring. She was barely a minute late. There were at least a dozen officers on the shift who hadn't even reported in yet. But Root always singled her out for prosecution. "The thoroughfare," she muttered lamely. They were 4 lanes down. "Don't insult me with your excuses," roared the commander. "You know what the city centre is like. Get up a few minutes early." It was true. She did know what Haven was like. Holly Short was a city elf, born and bred. Since the humans had begun experimenting with mineral drilling, more and more fairies had been driven out of the shallow forts and into the depth and security of Haven City. The metropolis was overcrowded and underserviced, and now there was a lobby to allow automobiles in the pedestrianised city centre. As if the place wasn't smelly enough already, with all the country gnomes lumbering around the place. Root was right. She should get up a bit earlier, but she wouldn't, not until everybody else was forced to. I wonder about the social commentary in this, where there's the elves, which are like the main breed, like Holly and Root. They look like, fancy elves, And then there's the sprites and the gnomes and the cursing toads. Like, is Ian Coulter trying to point out something here? Or is he just pointing out the social commentary? I know that everyone can't be, a social justice worker, but this is interesting, like, how he brings it up. Is he trying to point something out? Or is he just stating how it is? And he sees the elves as, like, the superior race of all of them. I don't know. I'm just pointing something out here. "I know what you're thinking," said Root. "Why am I picking on you every day? Why don't I ever ball out those other layouts?" Holly said nothing, but agreement was written all over her face. Is she still wearing her shield? Like her shielded helmet? "I'll tell you why, shall I?" Holly risked a nod. "It's because you're a girl." Holly felt her fingers curl into fists. She knew it. "But not for the reasons you think," continued Root. "You are the first girl in Recon, ever. You are a test case. A beacon. There are a million fairies out there watching your every move. There are a lot of hopes riding on you, but there is a lot of prejudice against you too. The future of law enforcement is in your hands, and at the moment, I'd say it was a little heavy." Holly blinked. Root had never said anything like this before. Usually it was just, "Fix your helmet, stand up straight, blah blah blah. You have to be the best you can be, Short, and that has to be better than everybody else." Root sighed, sinking into his swivel chair. "I don't know, Holly. Ever since that Hamburg incident." Holly winced. The Hamburg incident had been a total disaster. One of her pups had skipped out to the surface and tried to bargain with the mud people for asylum. Is that asylum? Asylum? Root had to stop time, call in the retrieval squad, and do full memory wipes. Lots of police time wasted. All her fault. This is kind of a segue. Not a segue, what's it? A side rant? Did you know that the hamburger was actually made in Hamburg, but it was a different type of hamburger than we're used to, like McDonald's hamburgers. It was different than that. But then a tourist from Europe actually came in to Hamburg and basically stole the recipe for the hamburger and saw how they made it, and then he decided to, change it about a little bit. And then when he came to the States, which was, still owned by Britain or whatever, I'm not good with history. Don't quote me on this. But when the European man came to the States, trying to sell his hamburger, it became super popular among the Western culture, and the Americans adopted it for their own usage. This is a very, I don't know, like, loose story. But actually, the hamburger did actually come from Hamburg, Germany, and the Europeans from England, I believe, went over there as a tourist, figured out how to make it, and then went to America and tried to sell it. But he mistook some of the recipe. He decided to move a little bit every here and there to his own whims, and then we have the hamburger. Obviously not like McDonald's hamburgers. That's not real hamburger. But it's the first thing I'd have thought about. Anyways, let's go on. The commander took a form from his desk. It's no use. I've made up my mind. I'm putting you on traffic and bringing in Corporal Frond. Frond! Exploded Holly. She's a bimbo, an airhead. You can't make her the test case. Root's face turned an even deeper shade of purple. I can and I will. Why shouldn't I? You had never given me your best. Either that or your best just isn't good enough. Sorry, Short, but you've had your chance. The commander turned back to his paperwork. The meeting was over. Holly could only stand there, aghast. She'd blown it. The best career opportunity she ever was likely to get, and she tossed it into the gutter. One mistake and her future was past. It wasn't fair. Holly felt an uncharacteristic anger take hold of her, but she swallowed it. This was no time to lose her temper. Commander Root, sir, I feel like I deserve one more chance. Root didn't even look up from the paperwork. And why is that? Holly took a deep breath. Because of my record, sir. It speaks for itself. Apart from the Hamburg thing, 10 successful recons, not a single memory wipe or time stop apart from the Hamburg incident, completed Root. Holly took a chance. If I were a male, one of your precious sprites, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Root glanced up sharply. Now, just a minute, Captain Short. He was interrupted by the bleeping of one of the phones on his desk. Then 2, then 3. A giant view screen crackled into life on the wall behind him. Root jabbed the speaker button, putting all of the callers on conference. Yes? We've got a runner. Root nodded. Anything on Scopes? Scopes was a shop name for the shrouded trackers attached to the American communication satellites. Why is it American communications? They're in Ireland, are they not? Does America have satellites above Ireland? That's a little bit sus. America's sus. Yup, said caller 2. Big blip in Europe. Southern Italy. No shield. Root cursed. An unshielded ferry could be seen by mortal eyes. That wasn't so bad if the pup was humanoid. Classification? Bad news, Commander, said the third caller. We've got us a rogue troll. Root rubbed his eyes. Why did these things always happen on his watch? Holly could understand his frustration. Trolls were the meanest of the deep-tunnel creatures. They wandered the labyrinth, preying on anything unlucky enough to cross their path. The tiny brains had no room for rules or restraint. Occasionally one found its way into the shaft of a pressure elevator. Usually the concentrated air current fried them, but sometimes one survived and was blasted to the surface. Driven crazy by pain and even the tiniest amount of light, they would generally proceed to destroy everything in their path. That's got to suck. Because, like, even during the nighttime, you still have the light from the reflection of the sun on the moon, and then the stars in the sky. They're still going to produce light. So, like, unless they have their head down the whole time, they're going to be fucking headaches all the time. Root shook his head rapidly, recovering himself. Okay, Captain Short. Looks like you get your chance. You're running a hot, I take it. Yes, sir, lied Holly, all too aware that Root would suspend her immediately if he knew she'd neglected the ritual. Good. Then sign yourself out to sidearm and proceed to the targeted area. Holly glanced at the view screen. Scopes were sending high-res shots of an Italian fortified town. A red dot was moving rapidly through the countryside towards the human population. Do a thorough reconnaissance and report in. Do not attempt a retrieval. Is that understood? Yes, sir. We lost 6 men to troll attacks last quarter. 6 men. That was underground. In familiar territory. I understand, sir. Root pursed his lips doubtfully. Do you understand, Short? Do you really? I think so, sir. Have you ever seen what a troll can do to flesh and bone? No, sir. Not up close. Good. Let's not make today your first time. Understood. Root glared at him. Root glared at her. I don't know why it is, Captain Short, but whenever you start agreeing with me, I get decidedly nervous. Root was right to be nervous. If he'd known how this straightforward recon assignment was going to turn out, he would probably have retired then and there. Tonight, history was going to be made, and it wasn't the discovery of radium, first man on the moon, happy kind of history. It was the Spanish Inquisition. Here comes the Hindenburg, bad kind of history. I think it's Hindenburg. Hindenburg, wasn't that the first blimp that just blew up? I could be wrong. I don't really pay attention to history. Very bad. Bad for humans and fairies. Bad for everyone. Alright, so I feel like this is kind of... it's probably a point that's been pointed out multiple times. But if trolls are so deadly to humans, why not just invade the human race and take back their land? As fairies, they're very powerful. They have advanced technological shit, and you know they have the ability to stop time and descend in massive beasts to ravage the human population. So why not? Why are they residing themselves in the underground where there's pollution that's worse than human pollution, and overwhelming heat from this the Earth's core, and having to deal with fucking, you know, serious seismography or whatever, and yeah, not having like natural sunlight. Why don't they just send in the trolls to boss down everybody that's human, take them into captivity, and then just live above ground? They have the ability to do so. Why do they not? And there's no way it's just because they are a peaceful society. Because humans are supposed to be peaceful as well. And they're over here just causing war left and right. So like, as a human, not as a human, as an elf, why don't they just take over? What's stopping them? Like the morality? Because the humans are doing way worse than fairies in this world. Poisoning the waters, polluting the air, just being overall terrible things in this world. Fairies are so much better. Why don't they just take over? I don't know. Anyways, let's continue. Holly proceeded directly to the shoots. Her normally chatty mouth was a grim slash of determination. One chance. That was it. She would allow nothing to break her concentration. There was the usual line of holiday visa hopefuls, stretching to the corner of Elevator Plaza. But Holly bypassed it by waving her badge at the waiting line. A truculent? Truculent? I don't know how to say that word. I'm just gonna say truculent. Truculent gnome refused to yield. How come you LEP guys get to go topside? What's so special about you? Holly breathed deeply through her nose. Courtesy at all times. Police business, sir. Now if you could just excuse me. The gnome scratched his massive behind. I hear you LEP guys make up your police business just to get a look at some moonlight. That's what I hear. Holly attempted an amused smile. What actually formed on her lips resembled a lemon-sucking grimace. Whoever told you that is an idiot, sir. Recon only ventures above ground when absolutely necessary. The gnome frowned. Obviously he had made up the rumor himself, and suspected that Holly might have just called him an idiot. By the time he'd figured it out, she had slipped through the double doors. Foley was waiting for her in ops. Foley was a paranoid centaur, convinced that human intelligence agency were monitoring his transport and surveillance network. To prevent them from reading his mind, he wore a tinfoil hat at all times. Okay, I watched the movie recently, the artemisfowl remake. I watched it again recently, and Foley is not at all how he is in the book. I hate the movie so much. I will continue to reiterate that point. That movie is absolutely trash. Anyways, he glanced up sharply when Holly entered through the pneumatic double doors. Anybody see you come in here? Holly thought about it. The FBI, CIA, NSA, DEA, MI6, oh, and the EIB. Foley frowned. The EIB? Everyone in the building. Holly smirked. Foley rose from his swivel chair and clipped-topped over to her. Oh, you're so funny. You're so funny, Short. A regular riot. I thought the Hamburg incident might have knocked some of the cockiness out of you. If I were you, I'd concentrate on the job at hand. Holly composed herself. He was right. Okay, Foley, fill me in. The centaur pointed to a live feed from the Eurosat, which was displayed on a large plasma screen. This red dot is the troll. He's moving toward Martina Franca, a fortified town near the city of Brindisi. As far as we can tell, he stumbled into vent E7. It was on cooldown after a surface shot. That's why the troll isn't crispy barbecue right now. And I know I don't know how to pronounce French words, so just bear with me here. Holly grimaced. Charming, she thought. We've been lucky in that our target has bumped into some food along the way. He chewed on a couple of cows for an hour or two, so that bought us a bit of time. A couple of cows? Exclaimed Holly. Just how big is this fellow? Foley adjusted his foil bonnet. His foil bonnet. Bald troll, 40 grown, 180 kilos, with tusks like a wild boar, a really wild boar. Holly swallowed. Suddenly recon seemed a much better job than retrieval. Right, what have you got for me? Foley cantered across to the equipment table. He selected what looked like a rectangular wristwatch. Damn, that word was hard. Locator. You find him, we find you. Retrieve stuff. Video. The centaur clipped a small cylinder into the accommodating groove on Holly's helmet. Live feed. Nuclear battery. No time limit. The micer's voice activated. Good, said Holly. Root said I should take a weapon on this one, just in case. Way ahead of you, said Foley. He picked a platinum? Whatever. He picked a platinum handgun from the pile. A Neutrino 2000. The latest model. Even the tunnel gangs don't have these. 3 settings if you don't mind. Scorched, well done, and crisped to a cinder. Nuclear power source too, so plug away. This baby will outlive you by 1,000 years. Holly strapped the lightweight weapon into her shoulder holster. I'm ready, I think. Foley chuckled. I doubt it. Nobody's ever really ready for a troll. Thanks for the confidence booster. Confidence is ignorance, advised the centaur. If you're really feeling cocky, it's because it's something you don't know. Holly thought about arguing, but didn't. Maybe it was because she had a sneaking suspicion that Foley was right. The pressure elevators were powered by gaseous columns vented from the Earth's core. The LEP tech boys, under Foley's guidance, had fashioned titanium legs that could ride on the currents. They had their own independent motors, but for an express ride to the surface, there was nothing like the blast from a tidal flare. Fordy led her past a long line of chute bays to E7. The pod sat in its clamp, looking very fragile to be rocketing about on magma streams. Its underside was charred black and pockmarked from shrapnel. The centaur slapped it fondly on the fender. This baby's been in service for 50 years. Oldest model still in the chutes. Holly swallowed. The chutes made her nervous enough without riding in an antique. When does it come offline? Foley scratched his hairy belly. With funding the way it is, not until we have a fatality. Holly cranked open the heavy door. The rubber seal yielding with a hiss. The pod was not built for comfort. There was barely enough space for a restraining seat among a jumble of electronics. So, kind of like, I've seen an image that the author actually concocted. It basically looks like one of those old-fashioned American rockets, where they have like the tiny little capsule on the very top of the rocket, and the rest is just fuel. So, the pod is like drawn out to be like that tiny pod on top of a rocket. Very small, with one seat facing upwards. Okay. What's that? Asked Holly, pointing at a greyish stain on the seat's headrest. Foley shuffled uncomfortably. Brain fluid, I think. We had a pressure leak on the last mission, but that's plugged now, and the officer lived. Down a few IQ points, but alive. And he can still take liquids. Well, that's all right then, quipped Holly, threading her way through the mass of wires. Foley strapped the harness onto her, checking the restraints thoroughly. All set. Holly nodded. Foley taped. I think it's tapped. Foley tapped her helmet mic. Keep in touch, she said, pulling the door closed behind him. Don't think about it, Holly told herself. Don't think about the white-hot magma flow that's going to engulf this tiny craft. Don't think about hurtling toward the surface with a Mach 2 force, trying to turn you inside out. And certainly don't think about the blood-crazed troll trying to disembowel you with his tusks. Nope, don't think about any of that stuff. Too late. Holly's voice sounded in the earpiece. T-20, he said. When we're on a secure channel, in case the mud people have started underground monitoring. You never know. An old tanker from the Middle East intercepted a transmission one time. What a mess that was. Holly adjusted her helmet mic. Focus, Foley. My life is in your hands here. Okay, sorry. We're going to use the rail to drop you into E7's main shaft. There's a surge due any minute. That should see you past the first 100 clicks. Then you're on your own. Damn, how deep into the Earth's core are they? 100 clicks down? First 100 clicks. Damn. Sorry. Holly nodded, curling her fingers around the twin joysticks. All systems check. Fire it up. There was a whoosh as the pod's engines ignited. The tiny craft jostled in its housing, shaking Holly like a bead in a rattle. She could barely hear Foley speaking into her ear. You're in the secondary shaft now. Get ready to fly, short. Holly pulled a rubber cylinder from the dash and slipped it in between her teeth. A rubber cylinder. Sure, okay. No good having a radio if you swallow your tongue. She had activated the external cameras and put the view on screen. The entrance to E7 was creeping toward her. The air was shimmering in the landing's light glow. White-hot sparks tumbled into the secondary shaft. Holly couldn't hear the roar, but she could imagine it. A raw, skinning wind, like a million trolls howling. Her fingers tightened around the joysticks. The pod shuddered to a halt at the lip. The chute stretched above and below, massive, boundless, like dropping an ant down a drain pipe. Righto, crackled Foley. Hold on to your breakfast. Roller coasters ain't got nothing on this. Holly nodded. She couldn't speak, not with the rubber in her mouth. The center would be able to hear her in the podcast anyways. Sayonara, sweetheart, said Folly, and pressed the button. The pod's clamp tilted, rolling Holly into the abyss. Her stomach tightened as G-force took hold, dragging her to the center of the earth. The seismology section had 1,000,000 probes down here, with a 99.8 success rate at predicting the magma flares, but there was always that 0.2%. The fall seemed to last for an eternity, and just when Holly had mentally consigned herself to the scrap heap, she felt it, that unforgettable vibration. Yeah, unforgettable vibration. The feeling that outside her tiny sphere, the whole world was being shaken apart. Here it comes. Fins, she said, spitting the word around the cylinder. Folly may have replied. She couldn't hear him anymore. Holly couldn't really even hear herself. But she did see the stabilization fin slide out onto the monitor. The flare caught her like a hurricane, spinning the pods at first until the fins caught. Half-melted rocks pelted the craft's underside, jostling it toward the chute's walls. Holly compensated with a burst from the joysticks. The heat was tremendous in the confined space, enough to fry a human, but fairy lungs were made of stronger stuff. The acceleration dragged at her body with invisible hands, stretching the flesh over her arms and face. Holly blinked salty sweat from her eyes and concentrated on the monitor. The flare had totally engulfed her pod, and it was a big one too, full 7 at the very least, a good 1,000-foot girth. Orange-striped magma swirled and hissed around her, searching for a weak point in the metal casing. The pod groaned and complained, 50-year-old rivets threatening to pop. Holly shook her head. The first thing she was going to do on her return was kick Folly straight in his hairy behind. She felt like a nut inside of a shell, between a gnome's molars. Doomed. A bow plate buckled, popping in as though punched by a giant fist. The pressure light blinked on. Holly could feel her head being squeezed. The eyes would be the first to go, popping like ripe berries. She checked the dials. 20 more seconds before she rode out the flare and was running on thermals. Those 20 seconds seemed like an age. Holly sealed the helmet to protect her eyes, riding out the final barrage of rocks. And suddenly they were clear, sailing upward on the comparatively gentle spirals of hot air. Holly added her own thrusters to the upward force, no time to waste floating around on the wind. Above her, a circle of neon lights marked the docking zone. Holly swiveled horizontally and pointed the docking nodes at the lights. This was delicate. Many Recon pilots made it this far, only to miss the port and lose valuable time. Not Holly. She was a natural, first in the academy. So she's a flyboy. Definitely a fuckboy as well. She gave the thrusters one final squeeze and coasted the last 100 feet. Using the rudders beneath her feet, she teased the pod through the circle of light and into its clamp on the landing pod. The nodes revolved, settling into their grooves. Safe. Holly smacked herself on the chest, releasing the safety harness. Once the door seal was opened, sweet surface air flooded the cabin. There was nothing like the first breath after a ride in the chutes. She breathed deeply, purging the stale pod air from her lungs. How had the people ever left the surface? That's what I'm saying! They have so much technological advancements above us. So much! They could literally just take over. I don't know why they haven't. Sometimes she wished that his ancestors had stayed to fight it out with the mud people. But there were too many of them. Unlike fairies, it could only produce a single child every 20 years. Human people bred like rodents. Numbers. Excuse me. Numbers would subdue even magic. Yes, but there's tactical ways to go about it. You could literally just kill people off left and right, sneakily. They have the ability to shield. They have the ability to stop time and become invisible. The ability to brainwash, what they don't explain yet, but they will go into it. They have the ability to brainwash people, the ability to stop time, the ability to move at super speed, the ability to like hypnotize people, and they can turn invisible. And they get their magic from the moon. And you're telling me they also know how to communicate with animals, which they don't explain in this book, but they do explain in, I believe, book 5, the time paradox. They explain that they have the ability to speak to animals. It's part of their like language. They have the ability to change the languages based on whoever they're talking to. So you're telling me that these advanced creatures never decided to just take over? They're like, oh, we'll lose too many people. And I've read a lot of like bullshit about like how the fairies produce, and if they were to have like a human fairy hybrid, would they produce more? Would they like be able to produce more than every 20 years? Would the human have more advanced life, like the hybrid human? But that's besides the point. What I'm saying is, these people, these fairies, are so far advanced that, yeah, but they won't take over the Earth, which is rightfully theirs, because according to the law of artemisfowl3, the fairy people were around way before even the Egyptians. They were here in like 000 when like Adam and Eve were here, fairies were here. And they're not trying to take over the Earth, which is rightfully theirs, because it would cause too many casualties. They can turn invisible. They have healing potions. They have magicians who can heal people from afar, like the healer in like Legend, like League of Legends. And you're telling me that they wouldn't just take over? What? This is bullshit. Absolute poppycock. Ugh. Whatever. Anyways, let me continue. Although she was enjoying the light air, Hawley could taste traces of pollutants. The mud people destroyed everything they came in contact with. Of course, they didn't live in the mud anymore. Not in this century, at least. Oh no. Big fancy dwellings with rooms for everyone. Rooms for sleeping, rooms for eating, even a room to go to the toilet. Indoors. Hawley shuddered. Imagine going to the toilet inside your own house. Disgusting. The only good thing about going to the toilet was the minerals being returned to the earth. But the mud people had even managed to botch that up with treating the stuff with bottles of blue chemicals. If anyone had ever told her 100 years ago that humans would be taking the fertilizer, she would have told them to get air holes drilled into the skulls. Holly unhooked a set of wings from the brackets. They were double ovals with a clunky motor. She moaned. Dragonflies. She hated that motto. Gas engine, if you believe it. And heavier than a pig dipped in mud. Now the Hummingbird Z7. That was transport. Whisper silent, with the satellite-bound solar battery that could fly you twice around the world. But they were in budget cuts again. On her wrist, the locator began to beep. She was in range. Holly stepped out to the pod and onto the landing bay. She was inside a camouflaged mound of earth, commonly known as a fairy fort. Indeed, the humans used to live Indeed, the people used to live in these until they were driven deeper underground. There wasn't much technology, just a few external monitors and a self-destruct device should the bait be discovered. There was nothing on the screens. All clear. The pneumatic doors were slightly askew where the trawl had barged through, but otherwise everything seemed operational. Holly strapped on the wings, stepping into the outside world. The Italian night sky was crisp and brisk. Crisp and brisk. Infused with olives and vine. Crickets clicked in the rough grass, and moths fluttered into the sky. Holly couldn't stop herself from smiling. It was worth the risk, every bit of it. Speaking of risk, she checked the locator. The bip was much stronger now. The trawl was almost at the town walls. She could appreciate nature after the mission was over. Now was time for action. Holly primed the wing's motor, pulling the starter cord over her shoulder. Nothing. She fumed silently. Every spoiled kid in Haven had a hummingbird for their wilderness holidays, and here the LEP were with wings that were junk when they were new. She yanked the cord again, and then again. On the third wrench it caught, spewing a stream of smoke and fumes into the night. About time, she grunted, flicking the throttle wide open. The wings flapped away to a steady beat, and not without a little effort lifted Holly short into the night sky. Even without the locator, the trail would have been easy to follow. It had left a trail of destruction wider than a tunnel excavator. Holly flew low, skipping between mist hazes and trees, matching the troll's course. The crazed creature had cut a swath through the middle of a vineyard, turned the stone wall to rubble, and left the guard dog gibbering under a hedge. Then she flew over the cows. It was not a pretty sight. Without going into details, let's just say that there wasn't much left beside hoofs and horns. The red beep was louder now. Louder meant closer. She could see the town below her, nestled on top of a low hill, surrounded by a crenellated wall from the Middle Ages. Light still burned in most windows. Time for a little magic. A lot of magic attributed to the people is just superstition, but they do have some certain powers. Healing, the mesmer, and shielding among them. That's literally saying in the book, that's canon. They have the ability to heal themselves and others. They have the mesmer, which is the ability to hypnotize and to basically to hypnotize and to also convince humans and other people to do what they want them to do. If they say, this gun is a camera, use this camera to take a selfie, and they end up shooting themselves in the head. Which, that's literally what a fairy can do. Convince you to kill yourself by thinking you're taking a selfie. And they have shielding, which is literally like the Flash, and how the Flash is able to, you know how like the Flash is able to adjust his, like how his timbre is of his voice by making the vocal cords in his voice vibrate at such a high frequency. It's kind of like that, but for their whole body, and by vibrating, it turns them completely invisible. Unless they have like X-ray vision, or like, you know, like the, not X-ray vision, I'm sorry, like night vision, where they can see heat signatures. That's the only way that they're able to see, and they can maintain this for up to 2 years. I read it in canon, whatever, artemisfowl sites. They can maintain this for 2 years without fueling up on their magic. And you're telling me this race of people have not taken over the human population? What? How? It makes no sense. Ian Corfler, what are you doing with your cannon? Like, this is one of the only qualms I have with the artemisfowl legacy, like the book series, is this right here. They could literally go in and take over the entirety of the population of Earth, everywhere. They have shoots underground that pop up wherever they want. My second qualm was with the final book, or second to final book. I think it's the final book, where they have, like, I'm not even going to go into it, but basically it kind of fucks up the whole thing where, like, this could be happening in real life. You know, this could be happening and we just don't know about it because of magic and bullshit. You know, like the Harry Potter world. The Harry Potter world could be happening and we just don't know about it because it's magic. However, the final book, I think it's book 8, The Last Guardian, it just, like, blows that up. It's like, no, this definitely is not happening in the world. Anyways, let's continue. I have another 10 pages to read. God damn. How long have I been recording for? 51 minutes. 51 minutes. That's so long. That's what she said. Anyways. Shielding. Oh, they just explain how shielding works. Shielding is really a misnomer. What fairies actually do is vibrate at such a high frequency that they are never in one place long enough to be seen. Humans may notice a slight shimmer in the air if they are paying really close attention, which they rarely are. Even then, the shimmer is generally attributed to evaporation. Typical mud people to invent a complicated explanation for a simple phenomenon. Holly switched on her shield. It took a bit more out of her than usual. She could feel the strain in the beads of the sweat on her forehead. I really should complete the ritual, she thought. The sooner the better. Some commotion below broke into her thoughts. Something that didn't gel with the nighttime noises. Holly adjusted the trim on her backpack and flew in for a closer look. Look only, she reminded herself. That was her job. Yeah, recon. A recon officer was sent up the chutes to pinpoint the target, while the retrieval boys took a nice cussy shuttle. The troll was directly below her, pounding against the town's outer wall. Yeah, pound that shit. Which was coming away in chunks beneath his powerful fingers. Damn, he got powerful fingers too. Shit. Holly sucked in a startled gasp. This guy was a monster. Big as an elephant and 10 times as mean. Elephants aren't mean unless you provoke them. But this particular beast was worse than mean. He was scared. Control, said Holly into her mic. Runner located. Situation critical topside. Root himself was on the other end of the comlink. Clarify, Captain. Holly pointed her video link at the troll. Runner is going through the town wall. Contact imminent. How far away is retrieval? ETA 5 minutes minimum. We're still in the shuttle. Holly bit her lip. Root was in the shuttle? That's too long, Commander. This whole town is going to explode in 10 seconds. I'm going in. Negative, Holly. Captain Short, you don't have the invite. You know the law. Hold your position. But Commander... Root cut her off. No bots, Captain. Hang back. That's an order. Holly's entire body felt like a heartbeat. Gasoline fumes were addling her brain. What could she do? What was the right decision to make? Lives or orders? Then the troll broke through the wall, and a child's voice split the night. Hawita! It screamed. Again, I don't know how to speak French, so please bear with me. Help. An invitation. At a stretch. Sorry, Commander. The troll was like crazy, and there are children in there. She could imagine Root's face, purple with rage, as he spat into the mic. I'll have your stripes, Short. You'll spend the next 100 years on drain duty. I believe that means, like, cleaning out houses. Streamlining her, there was no use. Holly had disconnected her mic and swooped in after the troll. Streamlining her body, Captain Shaw ducked into the hall. She appeared to be in a restaurant. A packed restaurant. The troll had been temporarily blinded by the electric light and was thrashing about in the center of the floor. The patrons were stunned. Even with the child's plea had petted out. They sat gaping. Party hats perched comically on their heads. Waiters froze. Huge trays of pasta quivering on their splayed fingers. Chubby Italian infants covered their eyes with chubby fingers. It was always like this in the beginning, the shocked silence. Then came the screaming. A wine bottle crashed to the floor. It broke the spell. The pandemonium started. Holly winced. Trolls hated noise almost as much as light. The troll lifted its massive shaggy shoulders, its retractable claws shining out with an ominous shick. Classic prototype behavior. The beast was about to strike. Holly drew her weapon and flicked it up to the second setting. She couldn't kill the troll under any circumstances, not to save humans, but she could certainly put him out until retrieval arrived. Aiming for the weak point at the base of its skull, she let the troll have a long burst of the concentrated ion ray. The beast staggered, stumbling a few steps, then got very angry. It's okay, thought Holly. I'm shielded, invisible. To any onlookers, it would seem as though the pulsing blue beam had emanated from the thin air. The troll rounded on her, its muddy dreadlocks swinging like candles. No panic, it can't see me. The troll picked up a table. Invisible, totally invisible. He pulled back a shaggy arm and let fly, just a slight shimmer in the air. The table tumbled straight toward her head. Holly moved a second too late. The table clipped her backpack, knocking the gas tank fully off. It spun through the air, trailing flammable fluid. Italian restaurants, wouldn't you know, full of candles. The tank twirled right through an elaborate candelabra and burst into flames like some deadly firework. Most of the gas landed on the troll. So did Holly. The troll couldn't see her. The troll could see her. There was no doubt about it. It squinted at her through the haze. Fuck! Shit, sorry. I forgot how close my mic was. The troll could see her. There was no doubt about it. It squinted at her through the hated light, its brow a rictus of pain and fear. Her shield was out. Her magic was gone. Holly twisted in the troll's grip, but it was useless. The creature's fingers were the size of bananas, but nowhere near as pliant. They were squashing the breath from her ribcage with savage ease. Needle-like claws were scraping at the toughened material of her uniform. Any second now they would punch through, and that would be that. Holly couldn't think. The restaurant was a carousel of chaos. The troll was gnashing his tusks, greasy molars trying to break her helmet. Holly could smell its fetid breath through her filters. She could smell the odor of burning fur too. Damn, that's hard to say. As a fire spread along the troll's back. The beast's green tongue rasped around her visor, sliming at the lower section. The visor! That was it! Her only chance. Holly wormed her free hand to the helmet's controls. The tunnel lights, high beams. She depressed the sunken baton. And 800 watts of unfiltered light blasted. Damn, 800 watts? Blasted. 800 watts of unfiltered light blasted from the twin spotlights above her eyes. The troll reared back, a penetrating scream exploding from between rows of teeth. Dozens of glasses and bottles shattered where they stood. It was too much for the poor beast. Stunned, set on fire, and now blinded. The shock and pain made their way through its tiny brain, ordering it to shut down. The troll complied, kneeling over with almost comical stiffness. Holly rolled to avoid a scathing tusk. There was complete silence but for tinkling glass, crackling fur, and the sudden release of breath. Holly climbed shakily to her feet. There was a lot of eyes following her. Human eyes. She was 100% visible, and all these humans couldn't stay complacent for long. This breed never did. Containment was the issue. She raised her empty palms, a gesture of peace. Okay, I'm about to butcher this. Sukatasumi tutti, she said, the language flowing easily from her tongue. The Italians, ever graceful, muttered that it was nothing. It's nothing. The whole wall just exploded and the glasses broke. And there's a troll on fire. Holly reached slowly into her pocket and withdrew a small sphere. She placed it in the middle of the floor. Got it, she said. Look. The restaurant's patrons complied, leaning in to see the small silver ball. It was ticking faster and faster, almost like a countdown. Holly turned her back to the sphere. 3, 2, 1. Boom! Flash! Massive unconsciousness. Nothing fatal, but headaches all around in about 40 minutes. Holly sighed. Safe for the moment. She ran to the door and slid the latch across. Nobody was going in or out, except the massive hole in the side of the wall. Anyone could get in and out through that. The fuck? Next she doused a smouldering troll with the contents of the restaurant's fire extinguisher, hoping the icy powder wouldn't revive the sleeping behemoth. Holly surveyed the mess she had created. There was no doubt. It was shambles. Worse than Hamburg. Root would skin her alive. She'd rather face the troll every day. This was the end of her career for sure, but suddenly it didn't seem that important, because her ribs were aching, and she had a blinder of a pressure headache coming on. Perhaps a rest, just for a second, so she could pull herself together before the retrieval squad showed up. Holly didn't even bother looking for a chair. She simply allowed her legs to buckle beneath her, sinking to the chessboard linoleum before. Waking up to Commander Root's bulging features is the stuff of nightmares. Holly's eyes flickered open, and for a second she could have sworn that there was concern in those eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by the customary vein-popping fury. "Captain Short," he roared, mindless of her headache. "What in the name of sanity happened here?" Holly rose shakily to her feet. The sentences just wouldn't come. "You disobeyed a direct order. I told you to hang back. You know it's forbidden to enter a human building without an invitation." Holly shook the shadows from her vision. "I got invited in. A child called for help. You're on shaky ground here, Short." "There is precedent, sir. Corporal Rowe versus the state. The jury ruled that the trapped woman's cry for help could be accepted as an invitation into the building. Anyway, you're all here now. That means you accepted the invitation too." I like that Holly is actually really smart. She's not just badass hard-heads female protagonist. She's legit knows what she's doing. Said Root doubtfully. "I suppose you were lucky. Things could have been worse." Holly looked around. Things couldn't have been a lot worse. The establishment was pretty trashed, and there were 40 humans out for the count. The tech boys were attaching mind-wipe electrodes to the temples of unconscious diners. We managed to secure the area, in spite of half the town hammering on the door. "What about the hall?" Root smirked. "See for yourself." Holly glanced around. Retrieval had made a hologram leading to the existing electricity sockets, and were projecting an unbattered wall over the hall. The holograms were handy for quick patches, but no good under scrutiny. Anyone who examined the wall too closely would have noticed that the slightly transparent patch was exactly the same as the stretch behind it. In this case, they were two identical patches, a spiderweb cracks, and 2 reproductions of the same remembrance. But the people inside the pizzeria were in no condition to examine the walls, and by the time they woke up, the walls would have been repaired by the telekinetic division, and the entire paranormal experience would have been removed from their memories. Okay, they have the ability to wipe minds, create holograms that look as realistic as if you were touching it, and they haven't taken over. This is the most annoying concept. Anyways, a retrieval officer bolted from the restroom. Commander. Yes, Sergeant. There's a human in here, sir. The concussors didn't reach him. He's coming, sir. Right now, sir. Shields, barked Root. Everyone. Holly tried. She really did, but it wouldn't come. Her magic was gone. A toddler waddled out from the bathroom, his eyes heavy with sleep. He pointed a pudgy finger directly at Holly. Ciao, Folletta, he said, before climbing into his father's lap and beginning to snooze. Root shimmered back into the visible spectrum. He was, if possible, even angrier than before. What happened to your shield, Short? Holly swallowed. Stress, Commander? She offered hopefully. Root wasn't having any of it. You lied to me, Commander. You lied to me, Captain. You're not running hot at all, are you? Holly shook her head mutely. How long since you completed the ritual? Holly chewed her lip. I'd say about 4 years, sir. Root nearly popped a vein. 4 years? It's a wonder you lasted this long. Do it now, tonight. You're not coming below ground again without your powers. You're a danger to yourself and your fellow officers. Yes, sir. Get a set of hummingbirds from retrieval and zip across to the old country. There's full moon tonight. Yes, sir. And don't think I have forgotten about this shambles. We'll talk about it when you get back. Yes, sir. Very good, sir. Holly turned to go, but Root cleared his throat for attention. Oh, and Captain Short. Yes? Root's face had lost its purple tinge. He almost seemed embarrassed. Well done on the life-saving thing. Could have been worse. An awful lot worse. Holly beamed behind her visor. Perhaps she wouldn't be kicked out of Recon after all. Thank you, sir. Root grunted, his complexion returning to its normal ruddy hue. Get out of here, now, and don't come back until you're full to the tips of your ears with magic. Holly sighed. So much for gratitude. Yes, sir. On my way, sir. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3. A very long chapter, 31 pages. I am over an hour into my recording. Granted, I did take a lot of segues, but it's worth it. Again, I said this after every video. I hope you liked this. It's an amazing book. And I am tired, and I'm about to go watch a movie at cinema and eat some McDonald's because now I want hamburgers. Yeah, but I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. And if you're not, I hope this makes your day a little bit better. Please like and subscribe to the video if you liked it. Or if you didn't, smash it. Smash it! Black Hulk. Oh, my dog is freaking out and make a bunch of noise. Hush, boy. Anyways, have a great day. He's so greasy. Have a great day. And yeah, so I'll see y'all tomorrow.